Hello, thank you so much for tuning in, sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. Welcome to this video if you haven't seen these videos before, and welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness. I want to start off just by giving a big thank you to everyone who has been watching these videos, who has shared these videos with other people. And for those of you out there who are doing that, I really greatly appreciate it. For those of you who have been on my channel for a while, you may recognize, and I've had many people comment that I may have been in a position where I've mentioned some things that have kept the algorithms not in my favor. And I look at this like we are in this new stage of development and awareness where more and more people are going to be coming out with similar information. And we're each kind of finding our own resources to help expand and send out that information. And sometimes certain things are put on the back burner because the timing isn't right, or there's a lot of reasons that that could happen. So I'm grateful to everyone who has kind of put the word out there about the word that I'm sharing, because I know it's not for everyone. I know sometimes it can be very confusing. So a lot of times what I share is meant to be felt on a physical and a non-linear level. Physical meaning in the body, or certain memories come up or certain synchronicities show up. A lot of times I have people reach out and say, I was seeing the same thing, or this has been coming up in my awareness too. And I started doing this channel because I felt the need to express things in my own way. Even though there might be the same messages that somebody else is sharing, I'm getting them from a different perspective. And I think that's what we're all doing right now. We're all sharing and spreading information that is centered around activation, that is centered around expansion, that is centered around being centered in the heart. And so each of us brings to the table different elements for this entire package or puzzle that we are all part of. So I'm grateful for that. I have difficulty personally staying in the loop in social media and through organization because I'm busy doing sessions and working with people. And so keeping up on all of this can be challenging, yet here I am as often as I can doing a video every day for free, just to share in my own expression in freedom, giving other people access to potential, again, activations and downloads that may have otherwise been unnoticed before, or unknown before, or sometimes these videos provide validation, which is nice also for those that are opening to their more expansive abilities, whatever those abilities are, whatever they show up as. Okay, so that's, I wanted to start off by doing that. So I'm going to go into a little channeled flow. So for those of you who haven't seen these videos before, I've tuned in and tapped into my guide. I call everybody my higher guidance team. I'm tuning into multidimensional beings who we all have access to. It's through my DNA, from my perspective. Everything is shared in my perspective or from my perspective, or the perspective of the guides through my filtration system. I am a channel. I do use clairvoyance and clairaudience, and I do tune into language in a very different way than some people do. So I use kind of a mix of everything when I'm sharing these messages, in case you were wondering what exactly or how it is that I do what I do. All right, so we're just going to tune in and see what the guides have to share right now, or what might be relevant for the collective and what we're experiencing right now. So this is meant to be felt, not necessarily understood, but I probably will be going into some information about what's happening in our field right now. So part of the thing I'm being called to bring up is how much easier it's gotten for some of us to drop in. When I started this channel originally, I would spin, I would move my hands around, I would do a ton of light language to just drop in, but also because it felt good. And I did it on this channel even though it looked to me crazy. And I also did it because I recognized that there were other people out there who were going through the same experiences. So what I'm hearing is activations a la mode. Is that ice cream? Ooh, that sounds fun. We are in this deep and intense purification process. And as we continue to dive into this mode, if you will, modality, this reality of purging and merging, purging and merging. Many of us are feeling these intense adaptations. Many of us are feeling these intense variations of our ways of thinking, of how it is that we tune into our ways of thinking, of how it is we tune into others and their own views. Some of us are beginning to activate these deeply previously shut down potentials in the field because we have all accessed a different part of the field. Each and every one of us has accessed or anchored into different points within the grid system. So what I'm seeing is like, boy, I almost chose a different picture and now I'm seeing why. I guess I could still choose that. I was really into the blue. I took this picture of a piece of glass and I just thought it was kind of really cool. But what I'm being shown is like all of us, if we picture us just floating around in space and we're like Spider-Man and we send out this signal from Spider-Man and it anchors onto that star and it anchors onto this star and it's creating this web, of course. But what's happened is as we pull on that, it pings, activates something inside of us. So we're feeling this deeply concentrated awareness around so much. And this can be challenging, especially for those with empathic nature or heightened senses and abilities. So when this comes online, it can seem quite complex and it can seem quite simple depending on the person who is bringing through the information. We are not just speaking of channeling, or we are not just speaking of clairvoyant or clairaudient types or styles of communication. While all of that is already happening to some extent for many people, we would venture to say that this type of communication is being enhanced. There will be those who choose not to sit with this because it can be very uncomfortable, and they will move into a different type of packaging system, if you will, that allows them, allows them to maintain a buffer zone. I'm seeing bumpers on a car. It allows them to feel more safe or less hands-on than others. Others will embrace this energy, and I'm seeing people like running through the, running through the hills, yelling and dancing and sending out, I'm seeing them balancing with these flags, and yeah, so very different depending on the individual. And so collectively, though, we are all harnessing this frequency in a variation of ways. We are sharing this because there are those of you who will feel out of sorts in a variety of ways. This does not look the same for everyone, for each person comes into their packaging with different attributes, different qualities and qualification, different timestamps and different approvals. So as we put our approval on certain things that are now within our field of awareness, we are being called to take the time to adjust to these energies. Take the time to trust in the information that you are receiving before potentially projecting that into the state of consciousness that we call the collective experience. For while we are inviting some to jump in full throttle and swim, we are inviting others to sit on the raft and allow the sun to bake, if you will, all of the energies that have been collected so that it may cook a little bit longer, so the recipe can be a bit more fine-tuned, and you will feel into where your space is at. We mentioned in a previous video about the parentheses, the in-between space, and that is essentially where we are right now. We are at a, not a standstill as much as we are a still point. We are finding a space so that we may attain deeper reflection, and this is a play on words. So we may obtain, attain, hold on to, and sit with the energies so that we can shift our perspective in more opportunities to grow. And so if you have found yourself already working with stabilities in these frequencies for quite some time, this is your time to be able to step up in reflection and share the messages and energies. If this is new and it is creating a sense of, I'm seeing all kinds of different things. I'm seeing somebody sitting and just like being spun out. I'm seeing people being in a state of fear or mistrust, whatever it might be. It's the time to sit with that and allow that to work on ourselves, because we're really being called to use this time now, this time band, this energy that we're standing in the center of, is what I'm saying, to find our center over and over again as we adjust to this frequency. And we're going to do another video on the frequencies. For as we blend and merge with this new set of rules, we operate within this energy with the new set of rules. And therefore, the old rules do not bind us anymore. And feeling unbound can heighten our sense of feeling untethered. And feeling untethered can heighten our sense of everything. I'm hearing a lot. So it can just heighten our sense of, where am I? What am I doing? Why do I feel this way? I don't know. I feel good today. Nope, no, I don't. There are a multitude of choice points that are flowing in through the ethers, if you will. And these choice points are micro to macro. And while some of them seem too big for us to really wrap our hands around, we are being called to hold each other's hand. We are being called to hold our own hand. We are being called to place all hands on deck, to receive and send that which is being stacked on top of each other, so that we may tackle the projects at hand. So we may find ourselves in a constant state of reunion. I'm being called to play with that, and reunification. For this is an old chapter that we are dusting the pages off of, and we are reflecting back on. And again, I'm getting reference to the previous video I did, if you feel called to go back and watch that. For this new chapter has been ignored, and we are in the process of being briefed on it. We are in a brief process, if you will, of grieving. We are in a process of grieving that which we did not know, and recognizing that which we do now know that stands in front of us in confrontation. Yet this does not have to be a confrontational energy. We are being called to confront our own energies, to not push or pass the buck anymore, to feel into the deeper set of frequencies and energies that we have potentially closed the door on. For those doors have been opened, and that which was not seen before is now being exposed. Now, we have said in the past that things are going to be exposed, yet it is difficult to expose something when there are those who refuse to see something. There are those who still will refuse to see what this something is and where it stems from, reference to whatever is being exposed. Yet we invite those who are in the know thyself, who are in the know and centered, to take these exploits of energy and information, digest them, and use them for circulation instead of getting hung up on the circulation of the hang-ups, the circulation of the word, I'm hearing the word barrage, like we're gonna get barraged by all of this energy and these words and stuff. For we can see through this time-based propaganda and agenda, and we can see through to the depths of where humanity is suffering. We can see through the concepts that have been hidden from us, and we begin to reveal ancient texts of wisdom. We begin to see into these texts through our own inner wisdom. So what I'm being shown is not only are some type of texts going to be revealed, books, and this can be hieroglyphs, doesn't have to be out of a book, but I'm seeing a book, like ledgers. Okay, now I'm going to be going into several different flows. I'm seeing ledgers of accountability. So a text, I'm being called to play with this a little bit, and maybe I'll come back to it. I'm going to write this down. So it could be texts in a phone. It could be something that's exposed that are showing us things that were hidden. And this is required for us to learn how to balance the disclosure and disinformation, along with the tactics that are being used to disclose this information. For it is not as if the information was not previously known. It was merely unknown to those who are now paying attention. And so we invite you to pay attention and read between the lines and not get stuck in the disclaimers, play on words, and not get stuck in the crossfire, if you will. For there are those of us who are creating our own fire, P-H-I-R-E, that is building up in our human potential. And this allows us to actually shift the energy around the information that is soon to be distributed. For this creates a different wave of energy distribution. So everything I share is a multidimensional message. So what they're showing me is even the word text. Oh, are we going to see texts? Are we going to see books? Are we going to see ancient sites? Yes, all of that. Also shifting in how words are used. But what they're showing me is it has to do with actual energy distribution. So pay attention to how this is being distributed, where it's being distributed, and who's doing the distributing. But beyond that 3D, 4D message about our reality and what are we watching right now, what's unfolding in front of us, there's also, has to do with the quantum effect, quantum scaling, things at a higher scale. It has to do with balance and equilibrium. Again, you might want to go back to the previous video I shared. So when they say, what was the word that they used? I already forgot. Balance or distribution, energy distribution. It has to do with us maintaining our own equilibrium so that the energy in the collective energetic frequency. So this bubble that's around me is, let's pretend that's an auric field. That aura is producing a signature and a sound. It is a bubble within a bubble within a bubble. Again, see the last video that I did in the bubbles. So we are creating a ripple effect as we come into contact in the non-physical. Let's say this energy field is this big around me and I'm standing next to someone who's right here. They're going to be feeling that energy, whether they're aware of it or conscious or not. So what the guides are kind of sharing with me is many of us are opening to those feelings. Some people aren't aware. They don't know thyself. So they haven't recognized that something is shifted in their awareness. So it puts them into a place of confusion, heightened sensitivity, meaning emotional, a lack of well-being, insecurity, not feeling grounded, feeling like everything around them is shaky. But there are those of us who have already acclimated to this energy. We're the ones holding the frequency, and not out of a sense of responsibility, out of a sense, a higher sense, and our ability, because we've moved into this phase, we've locked into this phase, we've been into heart coherence, out of a sense of higher ability to respond. So we're responding to this in a very different pattern. This creates a balanced equilibrium or a balance in the field. So we're working on that simultaneously while all this other stuff is coming up. So what they're hearing is, don't get lost in the shuffle. This is a temporary necessity, again, the parentheses that I talked about before. And we're being held within those parentheses. It doesn't mean we can't use what's on either side of the parentheses and attune to the variables that are being offered to us. We're not the same number. We have more of us now. And this has to do with algebra, I think. 4th grade algebra. Anyways, so we are sharing this for those of you already know certain energy distribution is being distributed in certain segments of our reality, one chapter at a time. And yet many of us want the entire book, if you will, to be exposed. Yet we are calling the energy back to the previous message that was shared in regards to the chapters that were stuck together that are now being released. unleashed, if you will. And what this does is it creates a surge of awareness. It creates a surge of questions. It creates a surge of inner swirls, if you will. And as this is swirling around in the energy, we must also change the index in which we read the codes. For now, that chapter has been added. So the way in which we read the codes within the book that we are referring to that represents life or represents this part of our dimensional existence or this part in our time that we are now co-creating. The ledgers have been falsified to a certain extent. So we must change our organizational patterns in order to assimilate and to isolate the, so this is I'm going into 4 different rabbit holes here. Just keep going. We are isolating certain patterns through this energetic distribution that stand out. Do you guys get where I'm going with this? We've got one line of talking about ledgers, isolating certain patterns. This could have to do with electronics that are standing out as symbolic, but it also is quantum. We are isolating certain moments in time in which we are tuning into a quantum technology-based understanding of what has been achieved. And we are also tuning in as a collective of energetic beings, not only those of us that are speaking in this now moment, but all of you are each tuning in as a collective of energetic beings to the energies in a myriad of ways. And as we co-create in this new lineup, if you will, we must first begin to reorganize the indexing patterns so that they may stand in a different framework. Okay, that was all quantum, and this has to do with, I think, computer programming. I'm being called the lookup ledger. So this is code, but there's more. All right, so we're just gonna take just a second and dive down the rabbit hole. And part of this ledger is a hardware wallet and crypto wallet. So this could have something to do with that. And I'm being called to go deeper here. So here we go. Oh boy. So I just went down the rabbit hole. I'm seeing one thing, but I don't want to tell you exactly what to see from this. I want you to play with this because not only can this represent something synchronistic for you in your own life, it also can represent something synchronistic going on in the, realms that we're watching in the media and so on. A ledger is a book. I'm on Edema Online, which I love using. A book that lies permanently in some specified place. So that's the etymology of the word. Perhaps formed. It talks about that which has been. Okay, I just went into the rabbit hole on that. Which most of us know a ledger as a book of accounts. And fishing bait made to stay in one place. I didn't know that's what another meaning of it was. And also the surname via the Normans was a bishop whose memory was popular in France and Normandy. And the name in Germanic is people spear. I think that's good. Okay, so let's keep going with this. And so we are being called at this time to isolate these ledgers and to feel into. So let's play with that. That the book that lies permanently in some specified place, that which has been, book of accounts, and a bishop, which I always think of a bishop in chess, but I also see that having to do with, of course, the church. And so there are many things that will be retrieved, and there will be many things that have already been relieved, if you will. So while we hear about these certain accounts, many things have been laid to rest already. Yet now is the time for us to stir the pot, so to speak, with these new energies that are coming up. For now, the disclosure will have a different impact than it may have had previously. And what they're showing me is that message earlier when people aren't ready for it, I think I said this to someone earlier too, like there's a name for it. Is it dissonance? So it's like you hear something out of harmony, so you just don't pay attention to it because you can't quite grasp what you're hearing. And there's a lot of people that know certain things, but they don't because they have refused to even look in that direction because it doesn't make sense to them. And by the way, this can be about anything. I'm being really broad here. We invite you to just turn your eyes on, so to speak, so that you may see through the impermanence of some of these stories that are being manufactured. We invite you to turn your eyes on and inward so you may feel into the words that are being used in these isolated stories. And we invite you to tune into your own place, your own book of life, and see what it is that you would like to add in your own chapters. What is it that you may have missed in the previous memories that you have not necessarily, I'm hearing that you've overlooked or dismissed. And now is the time for, as we reread our own chapters in our own history books, as we look back at things knowing now what we didn't know then, we begin to change our relationship with that which is within the book. We begin to change our relationship with the characters. We begin to change our relationship with the story. And we have to add more to the foreword, if you will, or the index that is pointing out the directive flow of the pages and paragraphs. So this is an analogy of sorts to share what stage we are currently at in this moment of seeming chaos. So I'm just going to hold for a moment because it just... And as the energies steadily shift us in a forward momentum, we are invited to grasp and hold on to that which is of the utmost importance. And that is the template and energy structure of compassion. It is the ability for us to hold compassion for those who we like the least. Play on words, something about the way that's said. For what we see in others that we dislike is an aspect of humanity. And this aspect of humanity is held within the geometry in which we have all been at one time or another, from one perspective, from one chapter, from one story with a particular directive at a particular point or place in time. And we as a collective are now assessing that which we seek to bind ourselves into. And we are now forming a new clue, a new adjective, a new baseline frequency in which we are no longer templated into an old score. So again, score is music. It is when you keep track of something, when you have certain numbers associated with it, like where our marquee scoreboard has been wiped clean from what my guides are sharing with me. And this has to do in some cases with karma, soul contracts, agreements, all of that. So starting to ask ourselves, what do we want? What is it that we are what are we looking at? What is this? I always get that scene from Steve, like the old Saturday Night Live Steve Martin, when he's like just looking off in space, asking, what is that, over and over and over again? What is that? And he asks it in like 100 different ways. Anyways, you might want to look at that if you want a stupid laugh. And so I'm just laughing because I'm hearing Upledger. Now, Upledger was, if you're not familiar with cranial sacral therapy, I really invite you to check it out. It was life-changing for me. And what they're saying is this is going to require us to Upledger. And I'm playing with that because I realize what the guides are saying is, got goosebumps. Cranial sacral therapy could be very valuable for people right now. I'm seeing to how we keep track of things, how it is that we write things in the accountabilities is going to change, how we communicate with those types of not only products, I'm hearing products of the collective experience, but also how we operate within those sets of information. And when you move it up, like let's not go operate from down here, let's move it up here. But I'm also seeing this as a reference to our higher calibration. It has to do with our cranial sacral. It has to do with our creativity, getting creative about it. It has to do with us increasing our, I'm hearing the pump. So it's now the heartbeat. It's allowing us to function. Once we get through this, it's going to allow us to function at a much higher creative advantage within new rules of society, so to speak. And this is all a play on words. And so we will end on this note for this particular convergence. I'm hearing that was all she wrote. Has more to come from this. And we are excited, and we are recognizing the excitement within many of you, although some are embarrassed to admit it. For this excitement seems out of alignment or out of line, or out of alignment with what we're seeing in the reflection of the collective. But we invite everybody to remember the reflection of the collective is based on an echo or that which has been in the past. So they're showing me the ledger. Remember, ledger is that which has been, to indicate that ER on the end of it. So a book that lies permanently in some specified place, showing us what has been. So I'm also hearing like a ledge. We're on the precipice, right? We're on this ledge looking out over at this, and we're kind of in that parentheses. I think I talked about that in my previous video. So invite your own senses to feel into your own excitement. For the excitement that is inborn, play on words, that is coming up, that feels almost afraid to latch onto, is another combination that is needed to latch onto, to open the latches of conformity and to open into a state of grace and a higher version of reality that allows each of us to operate more fluidly, lucidly, and coherently than before. So we invite you to be excited and playful. We invite you to find peace in the little moments, playing with your children or grandchildren, your animals, and gardening, doing all of those simplified things that we get lost, that we lose track of sometimes, yet are so relevant for keeping us on track. These little activities that we find joy in throughout our day is going to be necessary in order to keep us uplifted, in order to uplift ourselves so we may uplift others. And as we move through this state of extended expansion, we may come into a greater extension of ourselves. And as we find this greater extension, it adds to our experience in a cohesive, bountiful, and beautiful brilliance, unbeknownst to that which has come before. And so it is. In love and light, guys. Namaste. Thank you so much for tuning in. Yeah, to be continued.